Nice to see some of you who came yesterday. It's funny to see you again today. Hopefully we don't ruin what we did yesterday. So I'll, but like Rachel was saying, it's please try to think of questions and or comments. It doesn't have to be questions. Because the goal here is for me to try to make it as practical as possible for you. There's no point of speaking up here and talking about stuff that you don't really give a crap about. So just keep that in mind. So my name is Magatte, and I was born in Senegal, the west coast of Africa. And oftentimes people ask me, how did you get started on this journey of doing the things that you do? For me, entrepreneurship is a very personal thing. Why? It's because as I stand in front of you, I have two issues basically that almost keep me haunted. And one of them is the fact that my people are dying at sea on a regular basis. Imagine a room full of you guys, probably if we took all the seats in this room and we put people like you in it. Now let's take all of those people and we put them in a little fisherman's boat, and we push that boat from Dakar, where I'm from, onto the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, trying to move up to Spain. And as you can imagine, most of those boats don't make it to destination. And most people on those boats die. And so imagine people like you, your age and younger, dying every single day because they got into little boats trying to get to Europe to find a job and feed their families, help feed their families back home. And they end up at the bottom of the ocean serving as fish food. I think that's pretty gruesome, isn't it? Well, that's my real story. I have friends, friends of friends, family members, far away family members, who you get news on a regular basis about stuff like that. Or a plane, when it gets somewhere above England, all of a sudden a body drops because somebody hit themselves into the cargo section or in the landing gear. And if they make it to the other side, the people who hid in the cargo section, they end up frozen up there, because you know how cold it is up there. So they end up frozen, but they did not know that. They did not know that this is not the place you hide. And others, when you're hiding in the landing gear, well, you fall off the plane. So that's the reality, the sad reality of migration. When people talk about migrants, I have lived with these stories from as long as I remember having a formed brain and being able to understand what's going on. So today we all get excited, we all get concerned and feeling very concerned about the Syrian refugee crisis, and I think we should, we have to, but don't forget that this has been going on forever. In my case, we call them economic migrants. Economic migrants are those people who leave their place of, who leave their countries so that they can go to another country and look for jobs. So that's my first, one of the two reasons why I don't have sleep at night. And the other one is the fact that my culture is dying at a regular, pace. Why? Because Africans, and more than Africans, it's people from the developing world in general, people who have been part of dominated cultures in general. And we share this, the Africans share that along with South American, Central American, Southeast Asia, people also in China, all the way. You could think, oh, China today is a rich country and everything, but the people oftentimes of China suffer from a complex of inferiority when it comes to feeling that their culture is not a dominant culture in the world or a respected culture in the world. So because of that, what does he do? What happens is the people from those traditionally dominated cultures, they tend to want to push down their cultures while accepting the Western culture because it is the accepted culture. And here I don't want people to make amalgams between what I'm talking about now and all of these stories we hear on campus of cultural appropriation. Those to me are very different, right? And if somebody has a question on that in the Q&A, I can answer what I feel the difference is between what I'm talking about here and cultural appropriation. So in any case, on one end, my culture dying because people feel that nothing is good about their culture and the Western cultures they want to adopt, and then also people dying at the same time at sea going to look for work. In my case, at some point, I had to sit down and just make some observations. As I told you that I am from Senegal. I was born in Senegal, raised in Germany after Senegal, and then France. And then after business school in France, I decided to move to the United States because I felt like France was going to be too small for my ambitions. So I moved to the United States, and I first was a headhunter in finance in San Francisco in the heydays of the dot-com boom. Started working with companies like Google, Netflix, when most people did not know what these companies were, anything about, before it became house name brands for most of you. In any case, what I learned in the Silicon Valley in relationship with my problem, because I was there doing really, really well for myself, but I also was in a deep, deep, deep internal crisis. And my internal crisis had to do with, okay, here you are living this amazing life. Yes, I worked really hard for that life, but at the same time, well, every day you're opening a newspaper, there's some nasty story coming out of Africa. And a lot of it is related to poverty anyway. So for me, it was just like, what type of a person can you be that you're just gonna, indulge in this life of yours and turn your back on what's going back there? There's surely something that you ought to be able to do. And it's as I was starting to ask these questions that eventually at some moment, my crisis just became full blown. I remember driving down on Highway 1 in California, Highway 1 is like going towards Big Sur. It's like a beautiful highway. And there, what did I see? I realized at some point I almost crashed into the ocean. Why? Because at that point, it's just like when all the emotions have been coming up for me, it was just like really, really, really a hard time. And that's when I remember I paused and I said, God, I'm making a deal with you. From now on and from here on, I want that everything that I'm going to do for it to be related to getting Africa in better shape. So I don't know what it's going to be, but you have to know that I am committed to it. So that was it. And then I drove off. And then sure enough, things started to show and reveal themselves to me. Being in Silicon Valley, I started to really appreciate and learn the magic of entrepreneurship. The magic of entrepreneurship is this magic of creating something out of nothing. And at the same time, having a newfound appreciation for brands around me, understanding that brands are nothing else but mini cultures. And remember when I told you that I really wanted for my culture to be salvage? And the only way you can preserve something is making sure that it expands. Otherwise, you belong in museums before you know it. So there, I just started to notice, even like Hollister. I'm like, wait a second, Hollister, California? I live in California. I live in San Francisco. I know that Hollister is no beach town. Trust me. It is like in the middle of nowhere, down when you're passing Gilroy in Midland, it's inland, super, super hot. There are no surfer dude, I can tell you that much. But yet Hollister all around the world, I don't know if you've seen going to their stores, the flagship stores in New York, like you have the dudes all, with no shirts on, like the six packs and all of that stuff, and they look like great surfer looking dudes. But that's not Hollister, that's not what Hollister is about. So here is a brand that makes you believe anything that they want you to believe. It's a surf culture that doesn't really exist even in Hollister. Then you take Coca-Cola. This little Santa Claus guy, the way he's dressed, the way he looks, all of that, a pure fabrication of Coca-Cola. Yet, every single year, all around the world, wherever you're in China, you're somewhere in Africa, you're somewhere in the US, we all tend to celebrate Christmas with that little guy and his outfit. Pure fabrication. So you see all of a sudden now the power of brands. And also the reason why some of you would not mind being seen, shopping at Whole Foods, yet maybe you will be hiding shopping at a convenience store. That's what a brand is all about. It tells somebody else who is it that you are and what is it that you believe in, and it actually forms a culture for you, and then you say, I am voluntarily going to belong to this culture, and you're sending your signals to others as to who you are and what you believe in. You see how powerful brands are? So I decided I'm going to use the power of brand and branding to actually tell the rest of the world the story about my culture, get them to love my culture, and as they get to love my culture, they also will get to love me and respect me. So that was one of the branding. And as far as people dying, these people are dying because they're going to look for work. We're going to talk later about why do they have to go somewhere else to find work rather than in their country. So when it comes to, they go away to find work because we don't have enough jobs in my country. So then I'm like, okay, with a company that sells awesome products, you know, with embedded in them, in their DNA, the very best of my culture, as companies like that thrive, then we can go back home and create better jobs back home. So we did that with my first company. It was a beverage company, and back home we put back to work up to 4,000 women back to work. And then I am doing the same thing now with this company, which is a skincare company. And this time around, we are very happy that all along we've been impact sourcing. Impact sourcing means you're buying your ingredients from you know, companies and from people for whom you know you're making a difference because you're buying from them. So impact sourcing is what a lot of people have been doing, which is, I think, is great. But now we need to get to the next level, and we need to get to the next level in terms of getting people up into the value chain of production. Meaning that instead of just picking the shea butter, for example, now I want you to not only pick it, but now I'm also going to have you into the facility where we make the creams, where we make the lotions with that shea butter. Because guess what? At that level, you make way more money than if you were just selling me something that you just farmed. And that's also what we're missing a lot in African countries and in poor countries in general. So this is why, guys, I got into entrepreneurship. Because for me, when people talk about poverty, poverty is a very simple notion, yet it is a complicated notion. But I try to stick to the simple side of it. People are poor because they have no jobs. People are poor because they have no money, sorry. No money because they have no source of income. A source of income for most of us is a job, right? Where do jobs come from? This is the time where you all have to wake up. Where do jobs come from? Companies. Thank you. Anybody else who disagrees with any of these gentlemen? All right, so it looks like we have a consensus here. It seems like I'm hearing that jobs come from businesses, mostly entrepreneurship. And I will even say most new jobs, because think about it, all the hundreds of millions of people who need a job in Africa, we're talking about new jobs that need to be created. Where do new jobs come from? And I say new jobs most of the time, comes from small and medium-sized enterprises. So if indeed we agree that jobs come from entrepreneurs and businesses, then don't you think that we have to focus probably on making sure we have a good business climate for an entrepreneur to A, want to be able to start something, and B, be able to get it started and run it, don't you think? Okay, so if we all agree on this, then how do you explain to me that if when I look at the Doing Business Index ranking of the World Bank, which measures, it measures 10 indicators, and all of these indicators have to do with how easy it is going to be for you to start and run your business. How is it then that when I look at such a ranking, that almost all African countries are at the bottom of such a ranking? Yet no one knows about that. Most people don't know about that, and most people actually don't care. Right? Are you like me? Do you see the discrepancy there? If we're saying entrepreneurship and business is the solution, yet in all of these poor countries, we're realizing that it's almost impossible to start and run a business. Do you start to see what the problem may be? Now, I'll walk you through a couple of those issues, the real ones. You know here, how many people here have a job? Wow. Everybody has a job here. And you know the rules, like when you come and you apply, the person can hire you right away, and then when you decide to quit, how long does it take you? What do you do usually when you have to quit, when you want to quit?
You give them like 2 weeks notice.
And then you're on your way, right? And when the company wants to let you go, maybe because business is not as good or whatever it is, what do? They do the same thing. No, you say they fire you. You see, it's funny. Because I asked her, she wants to leave as an employee, and she says, I give my 2 weeks notice. Well, if a business has to also give you a 2 weeks notice for whatever reason, because think about it, she may have to leave because, she found love in San Francisco and she can't wait because maybe some of the girls are gonna steal him. I'm just kidding. So that was my case. I met somebody in San Francisco, I'm like, okay, I'm quitting everything, I'm going back. So I'm not making fun of him, making fun of myself. So, in any case, or disaster struck in your own family. Your mom just learned that she has cancer, and you know what? You don't want to waste 1 second, and you want to go and be by her side. Everything else can wait. But you're a polite person and a responsible person. You give in your 2 weeks. Yeah, 5 minutes. You give in your 2 weeks. So good, you go. But the company, then you say, they fire you. Okay, well, you can quite fine. But even when they have to let you go, they also need to give you 2 weeks notice. And if they need you to go right away, usually what they do, they still pay you 2 weeks and you go. Now, imagine that you're in a place where your mom, something just happened to her, or disaster struck in your family, yet you have to give now. Do you know how long you have to give? 3 months notice.
What?
That's my country. And as a company, if I want to let you go, I don't give you 3 months notice. If you worked 3 years for me, I have to give you a 3 months, I still have to give you the 3 months notice, plus 3 months worth of pay. If you work 6 years for me by the time you have to go, for whatever reason, I now owe you 6 months of pay plus 3 months notice. If you work 12 years, I owe you a year worth of salary. Now, are you gonna sit here and tell me that all employers are a-holes? No, stuff happens. You see it in your businesses, right? You see it in where you work, stuff can happen anytime. Economy tanks, something happens, who knows? And people have to move, and you have to move quick, because if you don't have money, let's say you're renting your own house, and you're paying rent, all of a sudden you know you lost your job. You gotta be able to give a notice, and be able to get out of there quickly, because if we force you to stay there, you're racking up the debts, and before you know it, maybe foreclosure, or who knows? Same thing with companies. So now, I ask you to go into that country and start a company. Do you really think that you're gonna wanna do it? No. And then you wonder why there are no jobs in my country? Because in the first place, nobody wants to start a company because of all of these stupid rules. And I can cite you many, many, many more. Just like, for example, the minimum amount you have to open a bank account. It's $1,000, you know? How many people here have $1,000 to be able to open a bank account? Here you open a bank account for almost nothing for your company. So it's just like silly, stupid rule after silly, stupid rule at all levels. Then you wonder why no one wants to start companies. And if no one wants to start companies, then you wonder why there are no jobs being created. And if there are no jobs being created, then you wonder why people are poor. And then you wonder why, if people are poor and they can't find a job in the country, that they get themselves into a boat and go die at sea. Then you wonder why people from Mexico want to cross a border at any cost to come here, because the minute they step 1 foot from Mexico to this side of the world, their value increases 10 times. It's the same person, same skill, but because they happen to be on different soil, the value of who they are, of their work at least, increases 10 times. Who would not take that risk? Especially if back home things are horrendous. I dare any one of you to judge such people. And the only difference between them and you is because you had the good fortune, for which you did nothing for, to be born to the right person in the right place. That's the only difference between you and poor people who happen to live in bad places, badly regulated places. Never forget that. And if you don't forget that, then maybe you'll be tempted to work on the real stuff. And the real stuff is maybe we gotta focus on what are we gonna do so that these countries get to enjoy the same legal framework that I get to enjoy here, which allows me to flourish. And that, my friends, is one of the main questions to be asking ourselves. So whether you wanna be in the nonprofit or in the for-profit world, either way, it doesn't matter, because you can do good anywhere you are, as long as you think about, okay, how can I help make sure that people get a choice in employment? But to get a choice in employment in the first place means you got to be able to create a lot of jobs. Google did not become one of the best places to work at because the government or somebody told them, hey, you have to offer them, gourmet meals and private, made by chefs, and dog care and even massages and all of that stuff. No one told them that they needed to do that. In Silicon Valley, people are doing that. Why? Because there are so many jobs laying around that you now as an employee has a choice. And you will go where you're treated best. That's how we get people to be better treated by companies, not by trying to force companies based on stupid rules. Because if you do it that way, then it's the opposite that happens. Because then no one shows up. No one shows up, no companies show up. And who are the only companies showing up? The multinationals. And when you're the only game in town, guess what? You become the bully, right? So you're seeing these companies and you're hearing all of these horror stories of people telling you, yeah, they treated me this way, yeah, they did this to me, blah, blah, blah. Yes, because they can. And then you, in response, if you don't stop and think, you're like, yeah, let's crack down on them, let's put more bigger rules on them. Guess what? They don't care about your rules. They have armies of lawyers who can spend their time going around and around and around your rules and still win, right? But by putting one more extra constraint, you made it that Little Magatte with her small company cannot come and challenge them. So you are keeping me out of a market, and I am the only person, me and others, who can change this. Because if I come and I create 10 jobs, you create 10 jobs, she creates 10 jobs, all of us, these small companies together, we have like maybe put 10,000 jobs in the market. And we're competing with a multinational. And by the way, we're treating our people better because it just makes sense. You want the best people, well, you put better perks. And then all of a sudden multinationals are like, shoot, what the hell is going on? They're getting the best people. We gotta spike up our game. That's how you raise standards, by creating more opportunities and more alternatives, not the other way around. And in order to create more alternative, you have to free things a little bit. Because in this school we came and we said, and I'm done, if it's in school, because I asked Rachel to do this because I wanted to make sure we have enough time for questions. So I'm just gonna wrap it up on this one. If you just take it, and I always try to make things like, in a way, to say it in a way where you can relate to it. If in this school I see everybody wearing different things, but if all of a sudden the school was asking you only wear a uniform. First of all, you all look the same. Maybe there's not incentives for anybody to make different clothes or anything like that. And then you can imagine that fashion would probably not be where it is at right now if everywhere all around the place everybody was kind of constrained. So because of what I talked about and these policies that are killing the poor people, I also work on policy reforms in my country. But I will leave it to that. And then I wanted to make sure that we have time for Q&A. So we have as much time as I took talking for us to have a conversation with each other. And if some of us, now we're opening up to Q&A. If anything I said doesn't make sense to you still, please, by all means. If anybody wants to push back on anything, please make yourself heard by all means. And let's just have a conversation. I don't pretend to detain the truth. But I can tell you one thing, I'm a truth seeker, meaning I am here also to learn from you as well. So let's have a conversation.
If you had one thing for everyone here to take away from this lecture, like what would your thesis statement be, or your main point that you want everyone to take away and think about tonight when we go home?
Keep everything on the mic for the video.
Yeah, that's right. For me, I think it is, as it relates to poverty, and I dare to also say, as it relates to any other improvements you want to see in the world, I think you have to really keep in mind this, what I call this magic of entrepreneurship. Because we have seen it time and time again, innovation at all levels has come from entrepreneurs. It's just the way things have been, and they continue being that way. Because the entrepreneurs are the people who are willing to challenge the status quo. And you cannot change anything if you accept the status quo, or if you're afraid to stick your neck out. Many of us stick our neck out, and many of us struggle along the way. You know, I stand here talking to you, I have not even started to tell you about some of the horror stories of my life along this journey. Along the journey, I lost a husband. Along the journey, I made choices that are gonna follow me for the rest of my life. I don't have any children, and maybe 10 years from now, I'm gonna regret that, who knows? But I made decisions. Some of us get divorced, their spouses leave them. Some of us, their kids will hate them forever because, oh, you didn't show up at my game, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. They don't understand what they do. This is a world and a life of sacrifices. And so I want to make sure that everybody really understands what our contribution is, has some respect for it, and understand that the way we move the boat is through that entrepreneurship. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to benefit from this. We all work in it together. As an entrepreneur, I am nothing without my colleagues, nothing. So this is also how you play into it. So when you see somebody trying something new, join in. Yeah, so the message is really for poverty, definitely for eradicating poverty, moving people out of poverty into prosperity, but really, really, truly, for anything that you care about in your life and you want to see it become better, remember that entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship will get you there. So do whatever it is that you can to make it easier for them to do their magic. That's probably what I would say. Anyone else has a question? I'll be back.
Okay, so I'm also from Africa, I'm from Zimbabwe, and my dad runs and owns a small business in Zimbabwe, and we have the same rules that constrain businesses. We are not allowed to have part-time labor. So my question is, do you think that that is from corruption? Because as the government, or the top government, you know, the ministers, the president, want to control the economy so that they can benefit from it more than anyone else, they place these rules on the economy so it's not a free market, so that they can control it. And as it moves to a more free market system, their control and their sources of income, you know, the corruption would dry up. So I think, well, this is what I think, they would have to actually change the culture of the country and the system, the political system, the way it's set up, to actually have impact on policy for small businesses.
What's your name?
Slow.
So I hope you guys all heard what he's talking about, what he just said. And he was asking me, I think you're asking me if I think that this is all it is due to corruption. Is that what your question is? I think, you see, oftentimes people think, yeah, corruption is a reason why Africans can't, or the poor countries stay poor and Africans can't do much. Corruption is actually a result of these laws. You see, I was saying last night that most of us here in this room, if any law enforcement person wanted to come after us, they can. By now, he has committed 3 offenses, legal offenses. I did, you did, you did, you did, you did, you did. Most of them absolutely ridiculous, supposedly offenses that maybe date back who knows how many years ago. But the truth is, the more complicated you make a law, the more people are bound to, break it by, sometimes it's just, because the law makes no sense. And most of us break it, and most of us don't even know about it. So, if you have all of these laws, what happens is each one of them is an opportunity for the person who's supposed to enforce the law to ask bribes of you. It's just that simple. Here in the United States, maybe people are more discreet about it, but I'm telling you, there's corruption here too. But back home, the more complicated the law is, and the more room for bribery there is, because that's the only way people can keep moving with their lives. So in my mind, corruption is fed by sets of bad laws, complicated laws, and all of that. So we need to cut it out. Now, most people are like, then why don't they just change it? I will tell you that at least in most African countries, one of the biggest problems we had, like how most African countries got decolonized around the 1960s. Well, it's also a time at which we had the wrong type of intellectuals and economists who were basically influencing the world and the leaders. And all of those people, unfortunately, were people who did not believe in business. Remember when we talked about poverty will be fixed by jobs, and jobs come from entrepreneurs, yet then you have to really make it easy for businesses to do their work? What happens now if you're a leader and you don't believe in business? Do you really think that you're going to put in place some systems for, that are prone to a good business climate? Absolutely not. So that's what most of African countries, we have inherited from. And it is still there. It is still there, this anti-business mentality and mindset. So on one end, you're saying, we don't believe in business, so we don't care about the laws around business. But at the same time, you also have the Western world who is giving aid to these countries. And they're giving them aid, why? Because supposedly their people are poor, so we have to aid, right? Now, put yourself in the mind of this corrupt leader somewhere in Africa. His people are poor, the West is giving money, and he's using the money to line his pocket. You've all seen it, buying Lamborghinis. I mean, they drive cars that you've never seen in this country, trust me. Custom-made cars. If you think Donald Trump is bad with his gold everything, some of these people, your brain cannot even begin to imagine the abject luxury that they live in. Abject. And they buy, chateaus in the south of France. They have big bank accounts in Switzerland because you can hide your accounts, at least until recently. And so imagine the scenario. Your people are poor. They're giving you money here so that supposedly you give it to your people so they can eat, but you make sure it doesn't go to the people. You put it in your pocket. Your people remain poor. They keep giving you money. The corrupt leader, do you really think this person has an incentive to stop anything? Do you really think so? Right? So in this situation, I will take the example of my country. What we're doing is, we are making sure there are two things that need to happen. Because unfortunately, a lot of people in those countries are not very sophisticated about the mechanisms of economics. They don't even understand the relationship between why they're poor. Like, you have this woman who's crying out loud because none of her children can have a job. She doesn't have a job, she's in the informal sector. Her kids no jobs either, and she doesn't see when it's going to change. But at the same time, I'm saying, do you know about the doing business? And she's like, what's that? And she's like, oh, is that thing where it's all about, our government is the political thing? So when you don't know how these laws and reforms can impact you, instead, I see a woman like that, instead of being like, okay, oh, I see. Because the laws are so bad, because the doing business index, we are so bad on the doing business index ranking, because of that, no entrepreneurs comes, and no jobs, no companies are created, and no jobs is created, meaning my kids can have a job. Oh, you mean that's why I'm poor? It goes all the way back to here. No, this woman is not thinking that way, that young person is not thinking that way. Instead, what are they doing during election time? They tell the would-be president, oh, I will vote for you if you make rent cheaper. I will vote for you if you make rice and oil, the staple foods, cheaper. Do you know who are the leaders who make things cheaper, supposedly? By forcing. Do you know the type of leaders who make rents cheaper because they come to you and they say, oh, you built this great home. I don't know how much it took you to build it. You worked really hard for it, I'm sure. But guess what? Once you build it, I don't allow you to rent it for more than $1,000. Even if Michael said, your home is great, location is perfect, I'm willing to spend $2,000 on this because it's worth it to me. It's the value that it has to me. You make a deal, you go for it. But this leader is telling you, you can't do that. And by the way, so these are when you vote for someone like that, you are effectively voting for someone who by definition probably does not believe in business. So you see how all of a sudden when you're out there and you're saying, you're this old lady in Africa somewhere, and these young people, because their family is struggling with poverty, they are thinking in terms of take the prices down for me and do it at all costs. They're saying, I'm going to vote for you if you make rent cheaper by forcing the people who own the goods to make it cheaper, and if you make food cheaper, supposedly by some other mechanisms of coercion and force, then I'll vote for you. But again, we know that people like that are the people who don't believe in business. Because if they believed in business, they would be the first ones to tell you, I have no business intervening in him renting to him based on things that they both own. Those type of leaders are two different leaders. But you see now, if this woman understood, what we talked about, and then she came and she said, you know what? Forget the rent, the cheap rent, forget all of that stuff. Actually, I don't even want a cheap rent. I want to be able to afford any rent I want, right? So therefore, and for me to be able to afford any rent I want, I need a good job. Therefore, and for me to have a good job, I actually need a choice of jobs. But to have a choice of job, I need more companies coming up and creating more companies and more jobs so I can have a choice. So you know what? I want you to be a good reformer on the doing business index ranking. That's how you get my vote. People understand that? Oh! Because at that point, now she knows, if this leader doesn't do it, what are they going to have on their hands? Possibly a revolution. But before we get to a revolution, don't even think we're going to get there. Because what's going to happen is when election comes, they're just not going to vote for you. And in my country, at least, we have a democratic country, that's for sure. We don't have like these funny businesses that I know you have in Zimbabwe. But for now, you have little examples to play with. So if people like that did that and I train them to think this way, then they're going to put that pressure during election. We make it an election theme. And they're going to vote only for people like that. And if they do that, then the guy has to go and do it once he's in power. And then the minute those laws have changed, watch the entrepreneurs show up. Watch them start companies. And watch the jobs starting to be created and multiply. And watch that woman see her kids finally have jobs. See how it works. So while we're doing that in Senegal, at the same time we are working with the government also and preparing them for real reforms. Like how are they going to make this happen? Because we're going to make sure that people are going to ask for it, and we're also giving them the tool to execute on that ask. Do you see like how twisted we are in this way? But that's the only way we're going to make it forward, because the power of the people is so big. But if the people don't know what they should be asking for, then we're all doomed. And this is exactly what's going on. And by the way, we have the same problem in this country. I know a lot of people were Bernie fans, and God bless their souls. The reason is because I do believe that Bernie Sanders is a good man and he's got his heart in the right place. But the mind is completely misguided. If you want, gender balance, if you want, absolutely. If you want to no longer see poverty and, put power back into the people, then give the people what they need most, which is economic power. And economic power comes from them putting money into their pocket and going to do with it what they need to do. But for Bernie to say, I want people to have power, yet I'm going to put more of a decision making in somebody else's hand, that's totally wrong. And there you can just take the example I gave you from what we're doing in Africa as to what could be happening here as well. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, we all have the common problems. Maybe here you don't see it as well because, well, you get to eat every day, you get to have a great education, you get to do all cool things, and that's it. Yes?
What is your opinion of microlenders like Kiva or Vitana?
Did she need to?
So you just repeat it.
Okay. She asked, what do I think of important or?
No, just your opinion.
My opinion on microlenders. I think microfinance and microlending was a wonderful first step. And at this point, it is yes and. We are at the stage of yes and. So microfinance is great, was a great first step because, if people are, about to die, it's, I think microlending has been able to keep a lot of people, afloat and alive, quite frankly. But a lot of them still live in subsistence living. A lot of them, a lot of people. And we also know that most people who are recipients of microfinance and microlending will tell you that given the choice, they would prefer to have a good job. These are still necessity entrepreneurs. So we make the difference between necessity entrepreneurs and opportunity entrepreneurs. Necessity entrepreneurs is maybe your mom and dad, they both lost their job and they keep looking for work, and all of a sudden they're like, oh well, I'm gonna be a consultant. And then they pick up work wherever they can. Not because that's their choice, but because, it's better than staying home and doing nothing. At least they can pick up here and there. But that's really not what they want to do, and probably they won't be good at it because, it's just not something that that rocks their boat. So in a situation like that, your mom is a necessity entrepreneur. She's doing this because there's no other choice for the time being. That's very different from someone who's like, whoa, there's a huge hole in the market out there, I'm passionate about this, I'm gonna go and take care of that problem. Very different, and usually we see very radical different outcomes. So what we want is as many opportunity entrepreneurs to be able to build their companies. And right now microfinance is at least keeping people like your mom who needs to do something for now until something better comes along. That's what microfinance has been doing a lot of. Once in a while, some people build an amazing company out of it, and God bless their souls. But we know it's just the outlier. It's just a few just exceptions. So yes, microfinance is great. Now, what I would love to see us focusing on is the phenomenon of the small and medium enterprises, which is a missing middle, because we know that the small and medium enterprises are where new job creation happens. So I want to see more money funneled towards those people because they're the job creators. So yes, microfinance, and we also got to focus on real financing and lending, putting out there serious sums of money for SMEs to do their work. 5 minutes we have. I think there was a 1, 2, and... Okay, I'm going to try to have like really short answers. Maybe you guys can just pass the microphone towards each other so I can hear all the questions and I can do one bundle answer. Who was it?
Yes. I was wondering if you thought that education is important or necessary to see a lot of the changes that you want.
Okay. Who else on the question?
I was just going to ask, since there's so many laws against capitalism, maybe you could pressure the government to take a page from the socialism book and actually make government programs like FDR did in the 30s when we were going through the Great Depression, where they actually take thousands of people and they put them to work building the infrastructure of the community so you can build schools to better education. So I was just wondering if you could do anything like that with the government.
Got it.
Can you talk about your company a little more from a product standpoint, and then also you were talking about the benefits that need to be offered to employees. So what do you put into your company to make sure that that's happening?
Anybody else? Okay, so this is I'm gonna try. I'm not very good at synthesizing. I think, making English only my fourth language. There are some, whenever TH is involved, I may mess around. So when I have to say synthesis or synthesizing, whatever that is, you know what I mean. So don't hate me for it. In any case, I think it started with education and the importance of education. I am 100% with you. So much that my current company, Tiosan, half of the profits are donated to an education fund, and it is all devoted to the creation of an entrepreneurial school in Africa. Right now, my husband Michael, right here, has been he has created the model school in Austin, Texas, where we live here in the U.S. So that school, you could ask him more about it, but it's all about really fun. Michael, just say two words about it, because I think you talked about it best.
Created entrepreneurial teams who can create companies and do what you want them to do.
Right. So I think for me, education is very important, but I am only interested in the type of education that makes sure it doesn't stifle your creative mind and your innovative mind. Because unfortunately, too often our schools are trained, you are trained to basically learn and forget. You learn for the test, pass the test, forget it. Right? And at the same time, we're teaching you too often times that whoever sticks their necks out is going to be the first one to get their heads to roll down. So under conditions like that, remember when I talked about entrepreneurs are the ones who stick their neck out, and more than likely are going to have it chopped off. So if I am creating an environment where it's not accepted for you to take a risk, then you're just not going to take risks. So education, yes, absolutely, but I'm very particular about the type of education I want to see. And then someone asked about, was it? Yes, yeah, the FDR thing. Well, I'm kind of torn on that one because, this whole notion of a government creating, in a way, fake jobs and then we think everything is great. I'm not sure that I really kind of believe in that. Do we have roads to build? Absolutely. Are some people sending us money to do that? Yes. Should we be doing it? Probably. But then it's just not a situation where I want it to become like the way of the land, where it's supposedly everything is centralized at the government level, and the government is supposed to be creating all of this infrastructure for people. We are finding more and more that actually stuff created by the private sector is usually better, just in general. But again, I wouldn't say that it's completely, off the table. Maybe up to a certain level, and then release it to the private sector.
You have to fix the government that's in charge in order to implement those programs.
But I don't trust. That's the point. I don't trust in. Because remember, we talked about it. If the government fixes, if the people are less poor, this government doesn't get the money anymore to go buy their chateaus, so they're not interested. But yeah, then companies. Yeah. So my current company, it's a skincare company. So what we are doing right now is, part of my belief has always been, all the way to even the type of products we put out there. The ingredients are sourced organically as much as possible, but even beyond organic, we do wild crafted, because we know that wild crafted ingredients have more nutrients in them than organic farmed products. So, so that's one. The way I approach my business is I believe in, other people call it conscious capitalism. What I believe in is that every decision that I have to make, I have to think about how it's going to affect my 6 stakeholders. I say 6, right? My 6 stakeholders. And it has to be a win-win-win-win-win situation between all of them. What does it mean? It means that before I make a decision, it has to be a win for my employees, has to be a win for my customers, has to be a win for my suppliers, has to be a win for the environment, has to be a win for the community in which my company is, and has to be a win for my shareholders. That's how I approach everything that I do. And then as we are moving production to Senegal, what's happening in Senegal is I am even rethinking the flow, the workflow. I don't want the same person doing the same repetitive work on a daily basis, because guess what? It wrecks people's bodies. By now we should know better. Nobody said that, because we're also trying to bring in handmade in everything that we do. There's always a handmade component to everything we do. Maybe 80% of production is, with the machines, but then there's 20% that's done by people. We get as much done by the human being as we can, because guess what? I have millions of hands non-trained hands that need a job. So what's the point of me bringing in machines? And at the same time, I also know that there are customers like you guys who really absolutely love to see the human factor in their products. We are getting sick and tired of products that have no soul in them. And I think there's nothing better to put a soul in a product than to have another human being put their hand into that product for you. Is it done artisanally and bringing that soul to you? Yes. But we don't mess around with quality either, because these are skincare products. They go on your skin, and what goes on your skin goes straight. This is also what they don't tell you. The skin on your body is the largest organ of the body, and as such, it needs to be kept in an optimal state of health. And everything you put on the skin will go in. 65% of whatever you put on the skin goes straight through your bloodstream within 25 seconds. So you have to be very careful what you put on that skin. So we're very, very good about all of that. And yeah, and then we're running out of time now, but I don't know if I got a chance to answer all the questions. Thank you guys so much. It was great to see you.